Today we're going to make an herbed veal dish, which makes a lovely gravy to put over rice or potatoes. Hi, it's Gloria Donahue from Nana's Cookery. Welcome to my kitchen. Welcome back. Long time no see. The first thing we're going to do today is a veal dish, an herbed veal dish. For those of you who have watched before, you know I like to do things in advance if I can because I want to enjoy company when it comes. So this is a nice dish where you can put the meat away to stew merrily on the cooktop and then just come back to it at the last minute. It's going to take veal cubes. It's going to take bouillon, so that would be water and my bouillon, onion, bay leaf, salt, pepper, onion, and some oil. So we're going to cut the veal. First I'm going to dry it. See how you can see it's glistening. So you want to get it as dry as you can because all the meats brown better the drier they are. You don't want them to boil when they go into the pan. You want to saute them. So we'll start in a few minutes. We're going to start now. I had 2 pounds of veal cubes and I went through them to make them more consistent in size and dried them off again with paper towels. I have 3 tablespoons of oil heating in the pan. You want to make sure the oil is hot before the meat goes in. The other thing you don't want to do is crowd the meat. I have 2 pounds of meat. There's no way that's all going to be done in one thing. I'm going to put it in, let that brown, take that out, put it in a bowl, and then do the rest. Do it in stages. The reason, if you crowd that meat, it's not going to saute, it's just going to cook in its own juices. So you want every piece of meat to be hitting the bottom of that pan. So don't crowd the pan, it's better to do it in more than one step. They're not all the same size, but I cut some of the larger ones down to be more consistent. And now we're just going to let that go for a while because you want a nice brownness on the bottom of that meat, and then I'm going to use a slotted spoon to turn it over. And while that's doing that, we can now start cutting the onions. We're going to start on the onion while the meat is cooking. You can hear the meat in the background. It's sizzling and already it's getting a good smell. Sautéing the outside of that meat, it just gives it, the aroma starts to come out. I don't have to watch it every minute, but you can't really go far. You have to watch it every couple minutes. You have to turn it. You want to make sure all the sides are brown. And then I have to take it out and put a new batch in. So I'll be with you in a minute. We've got our second batch of meat in, and from what I can see here, it's probably going to take 4 batches to do it. And that browning just gives such a nice aroma and flavor to the meat. And then after we do that, we're going to put some onion in there. So right now I'm going to chop a half a cup of onion. And it's just a regular onion. I do have some advice if you buy sweet onions, like Vidalia onions. I love them for certain things. This is just an ordinary yellow onion. The sweeter onions are more expensive, but if you want them for a certain thing, they're perfect. Just probably don't buy a big bag of them. Because they are sweeter, they do not last as long as regular onions. You just can't substitute for one for another in your pantry. They will not last as long as the regular yellow onions. I just peeled it, cut it in half, and I'm just going to go through here. I'm just going to make it call for like a coarse chop. So I'm just going to go across. And then we're going to go down. And I'm not going to worry if this is a little more than a half a cup because a little extra onion never hurts anybody. It's particularly good with certain meat dishes. Now, I probably won't use that whole second half, but I'm definitely going to fill it up a little. Incidentally, I've got some things to tell you when I'm not so busy. Incidentally, if you're watching this and you don't really like somebody talking while they're cooking, get out of here. I'll post the recipe at the bottom, and I guarantee the recipe is good. But if you don't want to hear about family and me and all that nonsense that other people do, this is not the channel for you. But for the people who have really stuck with me over a long period of time, I thank you so much. It's been incredible having your comments, especially during this last really hard year. Now that will puzzle the people who don't know me. Our meat is all brown. It did take me four dippings in the pan to get it done, 4 different times. If I have a failing as a cook, and there are many, but my biggest failing is time, forgetting how long it's going to take to do things. Something says 3 cups of vegetables. Oh, well, that's good. Well, then you have to remember all the time it's going to take to chop those vegetables, or in this case, cook the veal. It wasn't just in and brown, it was doing it 4 times. Now, I did not need to add any extra oil at all to the veal. The drippings, they were fine through all 4. And now I don't have to add anything to the pan. I turned the heat down a little bit, and I'm going to cook this chopped onion for about 3 minutes in those drippings. Our onion is nicely sauteed in the drippings. We're going to put the meat back in, and there'll be some juices too that were there with the meat. We'll mix that up. It called for 3 cups of beef bouillon. And what I use is the jar of bouillon, but because my husband is on a lower salt diet, it's possible to buy a lot of things that are lower sodium. This is one of them. It's called low sodium beef broth. And so I just dissolved 3 teaspoons of that, because a teaspoon is used for a cup, whether it's a bouillon cube or, you know, the pasty stuff that I use, and in hot water. And one ingredient I forgot, a tablespoon of flour. And what that tablespoon of flour is going to do is it's going to help thicken that juice a little bit after it cooks. So we've got the meat in there, we've got the onions. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of salt. Only in my case, I'll probably put in a little less because of my husband's problem, because individuals can always add a little more. 1/4 of a teaspoon of marjoram. So let me see, I just did 1/4, so we'll make that 1/2. And we'll do this 1/4. Tablespoon of flour. And the 3 cups of bouillon. Now we're going to let this cook for, say, 1.5 to 2 hours. And if you cook it a little more, it doesn't hurt it. It's one of those things that you can just put on the stove and cook, and then just keep very low. And it's wonderful served over noodles or rice. We're going to do it over rice, but it really will make such a nice little gravy on it. In the cookbook, they call it a veal stew, but to me, a veal stew, it would have vegetables, so this doesn't. So it's herbed veal, and I think that's what I'll call it. We're going to let it cook now. We'll show you when it's done. Oh, and a bay leaf. Did I get my I forgot my bay leaf. Remember, when you cook with a bay leaf, make sure you take it out when you're done. It's not edible, and it can have sharp edges. They give a wonderful flavor, and they're very easy to find after it cooks because they're big. It doesn't really break down. So you just put it in there, and it'll cook, and then you remove it before you serve it. Everything else is edible. We'll see you later. While the onions are sautéing, I'll tell you a little recent story. My husband's not been well, and he wanted to go to Florida to be warm in the winter. Our daughter has a second home there, so he was going to drive some, I was going to drive some, but it ended up that I did the driving. So we went down. Unfortunately, had an episode there and had to go in the hospital. Wanted to come home a little early. We were down there for a month. But I looked at my maps, I looked at my GPS. I figured it would take us 3 days to come home. It's over 1,100 miles. I planned the motels, the stops. We had some inclement weather, some traffic problems, but each day I would check into the hotel and I would call the kids to say the Eagles have landed, the old people are safe, and he was doing fine, and we were doing well. I had no problems. So all 3 days I was very grateful, actually, and every day I would thank God that we'd gone through another day and everything was okay. So we got home, and we got home before the post office closed. So I thought, well, I might as well pick up the mail rather than have them bring it to us. And they gave me a big cardboard box of mail, a big open box. So I drove home, came in my driveway, and the first thing I did was take that box out of the back seat, come in through my garage, and there's one step and then a step into a hall. I don't think I'd ever stepped into that hall before with something in front of me. I'd come in many times with bags, but never that. I think I literally jammed into the opposing wall. There was nothing wrong with my body. My body didn't fail me. My brain failed me. So I went into the wall and went down on 2 artificial knees and an elbow. And after a few minutes, I was able to get up. But the arm wasn't broken. I had it x-rayed and everything. But I had to laugh because in the Christian Bible and in the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, and I'm sure no matter what religion you are, somewhere it says, pride goeth before a fall. And I had just finished saying, I'm so proud of what I did with that long trip. So be careful what you're proud of or you might fall. After a month of therapy, my arm is fine. I'll go back to the onions. Well, our veal cubes are off the range and they are cooked and they look delicious, and it's just got a wonderful brothy gravy. And you can have this over rice, over noodles, over mashed potatoes, whatever you would like, and it freezes beautifully. I thank you so much for coming to the kitchen. I really love to see you. Go out and enjoy life today and be good, not only to yourselves, but to others. Bye-bye.